I first started using opioids when I was 18. I was working at a restaurant, and everybody there did pills, and so I wanted to fit in. I think the first time I really realized I was addicted was when I got fired because I got caught using. I just remember going home, being like, I need to stop doing this. It's just not worth it. I'd become a different person. I remember, thinking like, I'll never do this again. I'll never do this again. But that was only the beginning.
My name is Sarah Kirkpatrick. I am a licensed clinical social worker, a licensed clinical addiction specialist, and a clinical supervisor intern. And I have been working in the addictions field since 2007. I got my master's in social work in 2012, after which I moved to Asheville and started working in the recovery community here. I think that because addiction is becoming such a widespread problem, that it's beginning to touch families and people who never would have thought about addiction otherwise. So maybe 5 years ago even, there would have been a lot more pushback against a halfway house starting here in Asheville, or a treatment center starting here in Asheville, that now there's a little bit more acceptance for.
It's funny because I kind of feel like Asheville chose me. The treatment facility that I was at, highly recommended that we all transfer to a halfway house or some sort of sober living. And so they had found a couple places in Nashville and Asheville, and Asheville was closer. So that's, how I ended up in Asheville.
When I started working in the addictions field in 2007, the new drug of addiction that was out there was methamphetamine. And so we were going to a lot of trainings and getting a lot of information on methamphetamine and what that would look like. We also saw the wave of bath salts and spice that kind of hit the scene around 2008, 2009. But the opioid addiction, it really started to pick up, and it never kind of tapered off.
I know that my life started to surround around using. That was just all I thought about. That was all I wanted. I was stealing, and I was, sleeping with people just to, get more.
I think that in order to get the opioids, people are going to their doctor, or they were going to their doctor, or they were going in their parents' medicine cabinet.
I know people that were prescribed, it all began because they were prescribed medication through an injury or, most common back problems. And then I know a lot of people that just kind of walked into it like I did. My drug of choice was Roxy's, Opanas.
I think that by criminalizing drug addiction, that's not helpful, because what we have is people going into prison, which is supposed to be rehabilitative, but it's not. And they're coming out with nothing changed in terms of their addiction, nothing changed in terms of their coping skills or their recovery capital, and they're going back to where they were before with maybe even more trauma that makes their addiction worse.
I think that addicts are too harshly criticized in the jail system, in the prison system, and I just wish that there was more help within those establishments, maybe meetings in there and, books, literature, education, just so that, if an addict does end up in prison or jail, they can learn about this new way of life, and then maybe when they get out, they will try that and hopefully not return. Even though the government is cutting down on prescriptions and things like that, it's almost worse because now those who are already addicted are finding other ways to, get high, and therefore they tend to go towards heroin, and it's also a lot easier to overdose on heroin than it is on opiates. So I think that is almost increasing the epidemic of ODs and things like that.
Fentanyl is much stronger than heroin. It's much stronger than Vicodin or Percocet or some of the drugs that you would normally find in a medicine cabinet.
The other thing is opiates are expensive. Like on the street, they are like insane. So financially wise, and we all know addicts, we're broke. Because all of our money, goes towards our addictions. All my money went towards my addiction.
Fentanyl has become a big problem because it's mixed with heroin, and because it's being mixed by street dealers. You don't know how much fentanyl you're getting to heroin, and a lot of the time there's very little heroin and a lot of fentanyl. And so somebody who is used to doing a certain amount in a shot of heroin, to do that much with fentanyl, that's absolutely fatal. The level of addiction rose so quickly that the resources couldn't keep up with it. And I think that our society has been kind of slow to understand what addiction is, that it's not a moral failing, that it's technically a disease.
It's not like a choice, like these people didn't choose this life. It just is what it is genetically. Because my life is oriented around being around other addicts, I see, people struggle and come in and out, constantly. And it's like every time I go to a meeting, I see new faces. It's like every time.
For the most part, especially if it's a family member and it's somebody that we love, we don't want to see the signs for what they are. And so we're trying to excuse addiction as pure mental health or as just strange behavior. And especially now with this crisis situation, people are dying. And so if we see the signs of addiction, if we know what to look for, we can get people the help that they need before another person dies.